The first crack didn't come with shouting or crying. It came in silence, nestled in the ordinary. A moment so mundane it should have passed unnoticed, until it didn't. It was a Wednesday. Not memorable. Not dramatic. He came home from work later than usual, his hands still warm from the steering wheel, his back stiff from the traffic. The house, quiet as always, greeted him with the soft tick of the wall clock and the faint hum of the fridge compressor. The dog didn't bark, because there was no dog. She'd never liked pets, said fur gave her allergies. He'd always thought that was a shame. He hung his coat, loosened his tie, and walked into the kitchen. The smell of garlic and something tomato-based still lingered in the air. That made sense. She texted earlier about making penne arrabbiata, said she'd try that new brand of pasta he liked. It was the kind of small thing she'd always remembered. The kind of domestic promise that made routines feel like rituals. He opened the fridge, grabbed a beer, and turned toward the island counter to crack it open. That's when he saw it. Just to the left of the stove, tucked in the corner where they kept that hand-painted ceramic spoon rest from their honeymoon in Capri, was a single, short drinking glass. Nothing strange about the glass itself. It was one of the cheap ones from IKEA, the kind they bought in a bundle 6 years ago and had never bothered to upgrade. It was the color of the contents that froze him. Lipstick. Not the kind that stained the rim, no, that would have been expected. His wife wore lipstick all the time, always in muted, professional tones, mauve, rosewood, the kind of colors that whispered elegance. This was different. The faint red stain floated lazily in the water, like a ghost left behind. He leaned closer. Crimson. Not hers. Too bright. Too loud. Almost vulgar. It had bled from something smudged and dissolved in the water inside the glass, a cloudy pink swirl blooming softly from the edge of the ice cubes. Ice. That was another thing. He blinked. The ice hadn't melted. His fridge didn't have a working ice maker. The old machine jammed years ago. She hated the noise it made, called it a damn snow monster, so they'd unplugged it. And ever since, he made cubes manually, once a week, every Sunday, stored neatly in a zip-top bag in the freezer. The thing was, he hadn't filled the tray this week. Hadn't had time. And yet here were fresh, perfect cubes, clear, sharp-edged, clinking delicately as if mocking his confusion. His hands didn't tremble, but his grip on the bottle tightened slightly. A tiny shift of breath, almost imperceptible. He scanned the rest of the counter, then looked back at the glass. It wasn't just a lipstick stain. There was a faint indentation along the rim, like someone had pressed a lip too hard against it. The glass hadn't been rinsed. Just sat there, like an afterthought, like someone too used to being hidden had forgotten, just once, how visible things can be. The fridge door's side shut behind him, forgotten. A single drop of condensation ran down the side of the bottle and pooled on the counter. The silence was heavier now. Not oppressive. Not dramatic. Just thick. Like a room with no ventilation. Like a throat that refused to clear. He didn't move. Didn't call out her name. She was home. He could hear the faint rustle upstairs. Probably brushing her hair. Maybe humming to herself. Maybe texting someone. A memory surfaced, uninvited. 3 months ago, they were at a wedding. She wore a pale blue dress, and someone had complimented her lipstick, a shade called plush peony. She laughed and said, "Oh, I stopped wearing red years ago. Makes me look like I'm trying too hard." He looked back at the water glass. The red had settled now, dulled by the ice, like blood under glass. Upstairs, a door creaked. Footsteps crossed the floor. The usual sounds of home. He could almost convince himself this meant nothing. A friend over? Maybe. But he knew better. She didn't have friends over without mentioning it. She never had time. Always too busy, always too careful. And she never wore red. It was such a small thing. A single glass, a smudge of a color she didn't own, ice that shouldn't exist. But it was enough. Not to accuse. Not yet. But enough to end something inside him, quietly, like the final snap of a wire pulled too tight. He picked up the glass slowly, deliberately, as if afraid to disturb the evidence of his own unraveling. The ice clinked again, fragile and soft. A sound that used to mean refreshment. Now it was something else entirely. He didn't dump it. Didn't clean it. He just stared at it for a long, long time. Long enough for the condensation to beat along his brow line. This wasn't a crack you saw. It wasn't even loud. It was the kind of fracture that ran beneath paint and plaster, hidden, until someday the whole wall gives way. And all it took was one glass of water. With ice. In someone else's mouth. Thursday morning, the sun hit the living room in that usual gold-filtered way, cutting across the hardwood and catching the dust like suspended snow. He sat at the kitchen table with his coffee, eyes half closed, pretending to read the headlines, pretending the world hadn't shifted under his feet 2 nights ago. The glass still sat in the sink. He hadn't touched it. Neither had she. Maybe she hadn't noticed it. Or maybe she had and didn't say anything. Either option felt worse than the other. She breezed in, her hair pulled into one of those loose buns that somehow made her look younger, freer, more untouchable. She wore the gray sweater he liked, the one she used to wear on their lazy Sundays. But now it hung on her like it belonged to someone else. She smiled, big, bright, perfect. Too perfect. "Hey babe," she chirped, voice too light, too smooth. She kissed him on the cheek like nothing mattered, like they still meant the same thing. He watched her open the fridge, skin the contents, then grab a yogurt and twist the foil with quick, decisive fingers. "Don't wait up tonight, okay?" she said without looking at him. "I've got that seminar thing. Might go late." He nodded slowly. "Seminar." She turned, spoon midair. "Oh, yeah, I told you. Women in tech thing. Networking, empowerment, all that jazz." She grinned, but her eyes didn't. "You'd hate it." Maybe he would. Maybe he wouldn't. But she used to invite him anyway, even if it was just for the drive. "Sure," he said, and she took it as agreement. Not consent. Just allowance. As she grabbed her bag and phone, he noticed it. Her phone was upside down. Screen hidden. Locked twice now with a new pin she hadn't mentioned. She used to leave it face up, open, like a shared calendar. Now it lived in her pocket, guarded like a confession. When she bent to tie her shoe, the screen lit up. He caught a glimpse of a notification. Just one word. Cleared. He didn't move. "See you tonight, maybe," she said with that rehearsed little laugh, slipping out the door with a wave that felt like a goodbye rehearsed too many times. He sat there for a long while, staring at nothing. Then he reached for her yogurt spoon, still lying on the counter, and turned it over. Red smudge. Not lipstick. Strawberry. Later that day, he checked the trash. No yogurt container. The pattern became clearer over the next week. A careful choreography. Her cheerfulness sharpened into something surgical, calculated warmth, like a thermostat set too high to hide a draft. She asked about his work, but only when her eyes were on her phone. She laughed at shows they didn't watch anymore. She touched him less, but complimented him more. "You're so good at fixing things," she'd say, after he changed a light bulb. "I don't know what I'd do without you." One night, she brought up therapy. Not couples therapy. "Just for me," she said, stirring her tea. "I think I need some clarity, you know? Some inner alignment." He raised an eyebrow. "Are you okay?" "Of course," she said, too quickly. "Just growing." He almost asked into what, but didn't. Then came the false climax. A Friday. Late. He couldn't sleep. The hallway felt too quiet. Her voice echoed from the office, low and urgent. Not a call. A video? He walked softly, the carpet muffling every step. Her door was open just a crack, the light spilling out like a confession. He leaned forward. There she was, back turned, headphones on. The screen glowed bright. He couldn't hear the audio, but the image froze him. A man. Smiling. Shirtless. Holding up a wine glass to the camera. She giggled. Not loudly. Not enough for a neighbor to hear. But loud enough to stab. He stepped back too fast. His foot caught the edge of a loose floorboard and made a dull creak. The chair inside shifted. Her voice called out, "That you?" He hesitated, then coughed. "Yeah," he said, rough. "Water." "Okay," she replied, chipper. "Be there soon." He walked back to bed and sat there in the dark, listening. 15 minutes passed. Then she slipped in beside him, cold and humming softly to herself. "Sorry," she murmured. "Got lost in a rabbit hole of old college videos. Can't believe how young we looked." "We." He stared at the ceiling. She turned her back to him. He said nothing. But he didn't sleep. The next morning, the chair in her office was back against the desk. The browser history had been wiped. The trash bin on her computer, empty. A candle was burning, eucalyptus and mint. The same scent she lit when her mother visited. A trick of memory. Of comfort. But there, in the corner of the room, was her scarf. Draped over the side table. Not just dropped. Folded. But too neatly. Like someone else had done it. He reached out, touched it, and found a hair short, coarse. Not hers. Wrong length. Wrong color. He didn't react. Not externally. He walked out slowly. Made coffee. Read nothing. The silence between them grew louder. It wasn't empty, it was saturated. With unasked questions, undone routines, and the unbearable sound of someone pretending they still care. He stopped checking, stopped asking. He just watched. And in that watching, everything changed. It happened on a Sunday, which felt obscene in its normalcy, the kind of day meant for pancakes and slow music and laundry half-folded on the couch. She was out volunteering for a local fundraiser, something she'd mentioned in passing 3 days prior while swiping through her phone at dinner. He hadn't asked questions. Not anymore. He spent the morning doing ordinary things, deliberately fixing the hinge on the cabinet door she always left open, oiling the porch swing that creaked when she sat on it in the evenings with her wine. It all felt rehearsed. Choreographed grief. Around noon, he noticed the printer in the office blinking red paper jam. He almost left it, but something about that blinking light was too persistent, too invasive, like a dog scratching behind the walls. He cleared the jam. 3 blank sheets. Then one with faint ink lines. A test page, maybe. But just behind it, curled in the tray, was a document half-printed. He pulled it free. A form, incomplete. A rental application. His name wasn't on it. Hers was, in bold, deliberate letters. The emergency contact line was filled out, LD. Not him. Not a family member. An address he didn't recognize. But it wasn't the form itself. It wasn't even the address. It was the signature. She'd signed her name with the date 2 weeks prior, and under the section marked co-tenant was a smudged line where someone had started to write, then scribbled over it with a black pen. Not crossed out. Not erased. Buried. And below that, in the margin, a faint impression left from a pen too hard pressed. The letters TS, initials etched like ghosts into the paper. He stood there, the hum of the printer suddenly unbearable. It wasn't a mistake. Not a slip. It was a plan. A place. A future without him, already in motion. This wasn't a secret affair stumbled into under weakness or wine. This was paperwork. Logistics. Lease terms. This was a woman building her exit while sleeping in his bed and asking if he wanted almond or oat milk with his cereal. And just like that, the shift occurred. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Those had burned out weeks ago, smoldering behind fake smiles and her newfound taste in Pinot Grigio. What remained was cold. Mechanical. The kind of focus born not from emotion, but from clarity. The war had already started. He'd just been late to realize he was in it. He placed the paper back exactly where he found it. Straightened it. Closed the tray. Then walked to the kitchen and poured himself a drink he didn't want, let the ice melt as he stared out the window at the garden she never watered anymore. Everything about their home had been a construct. The herb boxes she used to photograph for social media but never actually picked from. The decorative throw pillows she fluffed but never leaned on. The fridge calendar with carefully color-coded events, hers always in purple, his in blue. But none in blue lately. Only purple. So much purple. He thought of the drawer in her nightstand. Locked. Always locked now. He'd never tried it. Didn't need to. That was then. Now, he walked upstairs, took out the tiny screwdriver from the glasses repair kit in his desk, and popped the lock in under a minute. Inside, a burner phone. Slim. Cheap. Still warm, like it had just been used. It buzzed once, as if in greeting. No passcode. He smiled at the laziness. Or the arrogance. Probably both. The messages were brief. Tactical. Meet here. See you at 5. Can't wait. Don't forget to bring it. It. Always that word. As if even typing the truth would be a betrayal of their secrecy. Photos. Blurry. But her. No mistake. One from the back seat of a car he didn't recognize, wearing the jacket she said was too tight to wear around him anymore. One of her hand holding a different set of keys. His house key was missing from her ring now, he realized. Just yesterday, she claimed she'd lost it. Must be in the gym bag, she said with a laugh. Or the black purse. No. It was in someone else's palm now. He put the phone back, locked the drawer, replaced the tiny screw in the knob, then went to the hallway closet and began pulling down the boxes. Not the moving boxes. Not yet. The memory boxes. Tax files. Photocopies. Birth certificates. Things she hadn't thought to duplicate yet. She wouldn't know what he took until she tried to use them. By then, he'd be gone. But not before he left a trail. Not before he rewrote the narrative she was already building with her soft lies and bright smiles and carefully curated detachment. Because if she wanted to live in an illusion, he'd show her how deep that rabbit hole could go. He poured out the rest of the melted drink, rinsed the glass, dried it, and put it away. War wasn't loud. Not yet. But it had begun. She came home humming. That was the first mistake. A lazy, tuneless hum, like she'd had a good day. Like the air wasn't charged, like she didn't know what was waiting. She kicked off her shoes, dropped her purse on the counter, and didn't even glance at him. He was sitting at the table, a cup of untouched tea in front of him. She sighed, but didn't register him as a threat, just another fixture in the house she was halfway out of. Long day, she sighed, stretching, already halfway to the fridge. They ran out of bottled water at the event. Can you believe that? She laughed, then opened the fridge, not noticing that every label now faced outward. Everything in its place. How was your day? He waited until she turned around, bottle in hand, and met his eyes. And he said it quietly. How long have you been planning to leave? The smile faltered, only slightly, but enough. She tilted her head, tried to cover the misstep with a laugh. What are you talking about? He didn't blink. The lease application. The co-tenant you tried to scrub. The burner phone in your nightstand. The photos. The man. For a split second, she froze. Then, almost too quickly, I don't know what game you're playing, but I don't have to explain myself when you're clearly making things up. He didn't move. Just said, you signed the form 2 weeks ago. Her face flushed, barely, but it cracked the varnish. She scoffed, tossing the bottle in the sink a little harder than necessary. You've been snooping through my things? Well, so this is where we are. No wonder I need space. Space, he repeated. Is that what you call a new apartment and a man with his own key? She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms, slipping into a posture she'd used in 100 small arguments before. You're being dramatic. You're twisting things. This is exactly why I didn't tell you yet. Because you spiral. Because you don't listen. You just assume. He nodded slowly. You're right. I did assume. I assumed when you said, I love you, it meant something. I assumed when we picked out furniture together, it was for a future, not just a phase. I assumed when you smiled in our anniversary photos, you weren't already rehearsing your exit speech in the mirror. She scoffed again, louder this time. You're so self-righteous. You think you're perfect? You think this was easy for me? You've been absent for months. Just going through the motions. You stopped seeing me long before I ever looked at anyone else. He blinked. Just once. You're right again. I did stop seeing you. I saw someone I trusted. Someone I built a life with. I didn't see the liar behind her eyes. That was my mistake. She laughed, sharp, defensive, ugly. Liar? You want to talk about lies? What about you pretending everything was fine while you cataloged my every move like some kind of, what? Detective? Control freak? You were spying on me. He leaned forward slightly, voice low, even. You think this is about control? I gave you freedom. All of it. I let you breathe. You used it to build a life without me while still living under my roof, still kissing my cheek goodnight. You looked me in the eyes every morning and lied. Not because you had to. Because it was easier. Her arms dropped. She looked around like the room might offer an exit. You don't understand. I needed, she stopped. Swallowed. I needed something that felt like mine. I was drowning in us. I lost myself. No, he said. You didn't lose yourself. You buried me to find someone else. And you were so proud of how neatly you did it. So tidy. So clean. Right down to the way you still used my name on your email signature while you filled out forms with his initials. That landed. Her mouth opened, then shut. Her eyes watered, barely. You were supposed to love me unconditionally. I did, he said. Right up until I realized unconditionally doesn't mean blindly. You gambled everything on the idea that I wouldn't see you clearly. Now I do. She tried again, voice shaking. It wasn't just about him. It wasn't like that. It never is, until it is, he said. You didn't just betray me. You made a new life on my time. My money. My silence. And now you're upset because the mask slipped before you were ready to take it off. She looked at the floor. Her lip trembled. For a second, the facade cracked fully. Her voice broke. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. He stood up, slow and steady. No. You meant for it to happen quietly. Cleanly. With me too numb to notice until you were already gone. She looked up, tears now. I didn't think you'd take it this far. He met her gaze. Cold. Unflinching. You set the fire. I just stopped pretending it wasn't burning. She tried to step forward. He didn't move. She stopped. The silence filled every corner of the room. And he didn't leave. He just watched. And she finally understood what that meant. She stood in the center of the room, arms wrapped around herself now, the posture of someone trying to fold back into skin that no longer fits. Her voice, once crisp and sharp-edged, came trembling through clenched teeth. You're overreacting, she whispered, a weak attempt at laughter stitched to the end. like she could still charm her way through the wreckage. This isn't. It's not what you're making it out to be. But the calm in his eyes terrified her more than anger ever could. He didn't blink, didn't twitch, just watched as her voice cracked again. You don't get it. We were fading. You know we were. And I tried. God, I tried. You think this was easy? You shut down first. You disappeared into your routine, your job, your rules. He didn't interrupt. So she took it further. You're not perfect either, she snapped, louder this time, a last desperate swipe. You weren't there. Not when I needed you. You're always so composed, so put together, like you think that makes you right about everything. But it doesn't. It makes you cold. His reply came low, almost kind. Cold is what you called it when I stopped chasing someone who was already walking away. She flinched. He didn't stop. You say I wasn't there. I was. Every day. I stayed. I worked. I supported. I listened. But you weren't talking. You were already somewhere else. I didn't shut down. You stopped knocking. She tried again, stepping forward now, her voice shifting, softening. Don't do this. Don't throw it all away. We have a history. We've built a life. You can't just cut that off like it never mattered. He tilted his head slightly, as if considering the weight of that sentence. It mattered. That's why it hurts like this. But I won't let history be an excuse for betrayal. Her eyes were wet now, voice unraveling. I love you. I never stopped loving you. A pause. You'll never find someone who loves you like I did. He nodded once. I hope not. She blinked, stunned. You can't mean that. I do, he said. Because love shouldn't feel like surveillance. Like second-guessing yourself every time someone smiles at your partner. Love doesn't hide burner phones or sign leases with other men while pretending to plan next month's dinner party. She looked away, but he kept going. You didn't love me. You loved the life I gave you. The safety, the reputation, the way I made you feel about yourself. But you didn't want me. Not really. You wanted the version of me that made you look better by standing beside you. She was shaking now. Her hands fluttered uselessly near her chest, as if trying to push the words away. You're being cruel, she whispered. You're not this person. He exhaled slowly. No, I wasn't. But you made me meet him. Around them, the house felt smaller, like the walls themselves were closing in. Somewhere upstairs, the pipes groaned, a sound he used to associate with comfort, with quiet nights and shared sleep. Now it just sounded like a house sighing under too many lies. Please, she said, voice cracking fully now. Don't leave me like this. Don't end it like this. Let's just talk. We can go to counseling, or take space, or just something. Please don't make this the end. He looked at her then, not the way a lover looks at a partner, but the way a surgeon might look at the damage before making the cut. You made this the end. You ended it the moment you planned a future without telling me. You buried me while I was still trying to breathe beside you. She covered her mouth, like that might stop the sob from escaping. It didn't. I made a mistake, she choked out. A mistake, he echoed quietly. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. Locking your phone for a week while you build a parallel life is not a mistake. That's a decision. She reached out like she might still reach him, still find the old version of him buried under this newer, colder surface. Please, she said again, smaller now. Please don't hate me. He didn't touch her. Didn't move. I don't, he said. I just don't care enough to hate you anymore. Her knees gave, just slightly, and she steadied herself against the counter. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for anyone, anything that could give her the script back. But the audience was gone. The illusion was gone. All that remained was the sound of her breath and his silence. And that silence was the loudest thing she had ever heard. She sat in a coffee shop 2 blocks from her old office, the place where her name used to open doors and command glances, now ducking behind oversized sunglasses that fooled no one. The barista barely acknowledged her. She used to flirt with him when she wore heels and talked on Bluetooth like she was running something important. Now he handed her the wrong drink and didn't bother correcting it. She sipped it anyway. Bitter. Fitting. It had been 8 months since the confrontation, since everything she built, manipulated, curated, collapsed around her like a dying star. The job was the first to go. HR didn't care about the affair, corporate didn't like scandal, and someone had forwarded the screenshots to the board anonymously. The new apartment never happened. Tias ghosted her 2 days after she lost her job. She tried to spin it, say she ended it, but her sister knew better. Her sister, who no longer spoke to her. Her parents, who used to call twice a week, now hadn't called in 3 months. Her circle, those curated brunch friends, the women she competed with for Instagram likes and backhanded compliments, gone. One blocked her after she saw a group message she wasn't supposed to see. She's radioactive. Don't engage. The apartment she stayed in now is temporary, smaller than the walk-in closet she once complained about. She was back to temp work, customer service. No camera on during Zoom calls. No title on her email signature. Just support specialist, line 3. She thought about texting him every day but didn't. Not at first. He had disappeared so quietly, like he'd never been there at all. His name came up once at a mutual friend's dinner. Someone mentioned him, casually, and someone else replied, "He's doing great." Quiet. Focused. Looks free. That word stuck in her throat for days. Free. Then came the first message. "Hi. Just wondering if we could talk. It's been a while. I know you probably hate me." No reply. Then a week later, "Please. I miss you. I still love you. You were my best friend. My person. Then, we were soulmates, weren't we? You used to call me that. Please, just talk to me." She left voicemails. Long, rambling ones, sometimes crying, sometimes pretending she was fine. Once, she stood outside his building. Just stood there, like maybe the air still remembered her. But he never came out. Never called back. Never replied. And that's when it hit her, not that he was angry. Not even that he hated her. He didn't. That would have meant she still mattered. No, he looked at her now the way you look at a stranger who happens to share a memory. Polite. Indifferent. Distant in the most devastating way. Like someone watching a fire from the safety of higher ground. The version of her that used to control every room had died quietly, not with a bang, but with a long series of ignored calls and undelivered messages. She used to believe she could talk her way through anything, charm, cry, coerce. But none of it worked now. Because her greatest weapon, his love, was gone. And without it, she had nothing to push against. Nothing to manipulate. Just silence. Cold. Absolute. And earned. So now she walks through life muted, eyes down, careful not to brush against mirrors too long. Because when she does, she sees it. Not the woman she used to be. Just a stranger with the same face. Someone who used to matter to a man who no longer remembers the sound of her laugh. He doesn't speak about her. Doesn't post about her. When someone asks, he says, "It ended," and that's all. Not bitter. Just uninterested. And that hurts worse than rage ever could. Because love turned to hate still means something. But indifference? That's erasure. That's the final punishment. So if you're still here, listening, thanks. This wasn't easy to tell. But it needed to be told. Let me know where you're watching from, and what you would have done if it were your wife.